So let's get started, of course, with our quotes from the universe and from Abraham. Let's see what Abraham and the universe have in store for us today. First, from the universe. It's rather challenging for those here who've never experienced time and space to actually grasp how formidable you sometimes think your illusions are, because, quite frankly, they see the world around you as just more you. Cool, huh? The universe. We love our quotes from Mike Dooley in the universe, reminding us that from the non-physical perspective, this idea that time and space is so hard and real, and that illusions seem so true, that this world around us, that, when you're up there out in the universe and non-physical, you forget that it's like, oh, they're just like running around playing, having fun, and it doesn't always feel like that, does it? But it's a helpful perspective to keep. As a number of teachers I know like to say, we're all just actors on the stage, and we're all just playing different roles. And, at the end of the day, the curtain drops and the show is over, and we go back to being what we really are. That doesn't mean that in the moment we're not taking the role very seriously. It doesn't mean in the moment it doesn't all seem tremendously, tremendously real. But in the end, to remember that what is really real, the energy behind things, the spirit, whatever words you want to use, that goes beyond the physical. That goes beyond the trials and tribulations that we face every day. So a good reminder, something to kind of help to keep a perspective on life, and to remember, not to take things too seriously. So, wonderful quote from the universe. Let's see what Abraham has in store for us today. And actually, today's quote from Abraham is an excerpt from Esther's book, The Vortex. So let's see what this quote is all about. Our diversity supports our individual freedoms. While your societies continue to try to dictate and enforce human behavior to please the majority, because of your diversity, it continues to be an uncomfortable struggle that, again and again, falls of its economic weight. There simply is not enough money in the world to buck the natural currents of individual freedom and independence of thought. Abraham. A very interesting quote from Abraham, and this is one I think sometimes people find it a little controversial, or feel that it's a little difficult to wrap their minds around, and it's all really about diversity and how we all can have our own diverse experiences. And just because one person believes something completely different from you does not mean you now have to convince them and create laws to get them to believe the same way. That there's enough out there's enough space that people will attract those people who think like they do, and you will attract people who think like you do, and these other people will attract people that think like them, and that we don't have to create laws. And indeed, if we do create laws to try and get everybody to believe the same way, to act the same way, to be the same way, that those laws over time are going to crumble, because our natural desire is towards freedom and independence. And so ultimately what that is going to do over time and time and time is it's always going to lead us to a place of more freedom, and of more freedom of expression, of more freedom of thought, of more freedom of belief. So regardless of where we are, and if you look sort of over the broad spectrum of history of the world, dictators always fall. And corrupt societies always fall. And any place that you've seen where there have been efforts and energy put towards getting everybody to think the same way, it always dissipates over time, and that we naturally move towards a freer society. We naturally move towards a more accepting society. And yes, there are dips, there are ups and downs. I mean, life is organic. It's not a straight line. It's not linear. It's always going to be different one day from the next. It's not just going to be, oh, today we have freedom. Oh, tomorrow we don't have as much freedom. The next day, oh, we got more freedom. Oh, we have a little less freedom. Oh, now we have more freedom. Oh, now we have less freedom. But at the overall, you got to look at it in the big, broad brushstrokes. We will always go towards more freedom because it's a natural human desire. It's a natural part of our energy by just being born where we innately desire more freedom. So anything that does not support diversity, anything that does not support freedom cannot last. Now, cannot last is a very broad statement. Can it last a few years? Sure. Can it last a decade? Probably. Can it last a century? Maybe not. But when you're in it and you're in the middle of it and you feel the contraction and you feel, people trying to clamp down on diversity and clamp down on our freedoms, in the moment it doesn't feel comfortable. In the moment it doesn't feel good. And that contrast is the very thing that brings out of us that desire for more freedom, that desire for more diversity, that desire for more acceptance, which will eventually lead to the downfall of those energies that are clamping down. So just because on any given day it may not feel that good, over time it will change. And the natural energy and especially the feeling of being in the vortex, it's like you enjoy this diversity within yourself. Why would you want to stifle that diversity in somebody else? And the more we learn to accept diversity, the more we learn to accept freedom of thought, that everybody in the world does not have to think like we do. And everyone in the world does not have to act like we do. And everyone in the world does not have to be the way we're being. The more we accept that, the more we make it part of our lives, the more enjoyable all of a sudden life becomes. I've said for decades, long before the idea of the law of attraction ever came into my life, variety is the spice of life. I love diversity because that's what makes life interesting. I mean, really think about it. If everybody in the entire world was exactly the same, think how boring things would be. And you know what? People hate being bored. And you can see it over and over and over again. Every time there's this energy towards pushing things to be the same, there's always a pushback. There's always a pushback. So, two rather interesting quotes talking about, energy and the illusion of space-time and freedom. And I think they're two very interrelated quotes because the more we get it that we're all actors on the stage, the more we realize we don't have to get so upset if people don't think and act the same way, right? It takes several different characters on stage to make an interesting play. And if all the characters were the same and they had the same motivations and the same beliefs and the same everything, it would be a really boring play and no one would want to watch it. So that diversity, that difference, that's what makes things interesting. That's what makes people want to be engaged and want to be involved. So, two wonderful quotes of the day from the universe and from Abraham. I hope you've enjoyed them. Next week I'll have your new quotes of the day. And now